Welcome to the Creative Entrepreneurs Podcast, where it's all about turning your unique talents and perspectives into a viable business. And now, your host, Paris Hamilton.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 24 of the Creative Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, Paris Hamilton. As always, I am excited to be here with you today. In this particular episode, I want to do a book review for a book called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. So this is going to be a pretty short episode. Now, Phil Knight is the co-founder of Nike, and the book is essentially the story of how he came to build Nike into the household name that it is today. And what exactly is a shoe dog? Somebody might ask. Basically, someone who eats, sleeps, and breathes shoes. So from that description, you can see this book fits in with the entrepreneurial theme of this show. I've also done one of these types of reviews on a previous episode for a book called Blue Ocean Strategy. So this episode will be somewhat like that. So let me start off by saying that I really enjoyed this book. The way that it's written is just phenomenal in my opinion. I do a lot of reading outside of the nonfiction business management type of realm. So I love books that are fiction and fantasy and things that make you feel like you're experiencing the ups and downs of the main character. And when I read this book, I felt like I was on the journey with Phil Knight as he was starting the company, which is something I really enjoyed. With that being said, the book essentially went in chronological order from before there was even a Nike, when the company was going by another name, which was Blue Ribbon. Matter of fact, it started before there was even a company. He was back at home in Oregon, living with his parents after finishing his degrees at Stanford and Oregon. And one thing that really stood out to me was his passion. He wasn't really sure what it was that he wanted to do, but he knew that he wanted to do something. As a young man in his 20s with no money, he thought back to a business plan that he wrote while he was a student at Stanford and decided to actually pursue that old business plan. He didn't know what would happen, but he at least wanted to try. After convincing his father to loan him some money, which was something like $1,000 or so because Phil already had a couple of thousand saved up from working, Phil decided to travel the world for however many months and just become more cultured. At some place overseas, it might have been Hawaii, don't really quote me on that, but he ended up getting a small job just to earn some money to live on before continuing his trip. One particular stop on this world trip of his that he wanted to make was in Japan at a factory that made shoes. And at that meeting, he convinced the Japanese company's management to sell him a certain number of shoes so that he could resell them back in the United States. He offered them $50 for some small order, and he had his dad wire the money to the company right after the meeting was over with. And from there, he eventually made his way back home to Oregon, where he awaited the shipment of the shoes that he had purchased while he was in Japan. The shipment took some months to arrive. And in the meantime, Phil needed some money while he was back home, so he ended up picking up another job and taking accounting classes at a nearby college. For like the first decade or two that he was in business, Phil was struggling with having cash on hand, even though his sales had doubled every year from making hundreds of dollars to making millions of dollars. So Phil describes how he had so many issues with his banker because the company never had a lot of cash in their bank account, but Phil always wanted higher and higher loans of money so that he could keep buying more and more shoes from this company so that he could sell more and more in the United States. So if you didn't already know, companies have their own credit rating. And as such, they have to build up their reputation with whatever bank is lending them money. And if a company doesn't have a lot of cash in their account or keep a lot of cash in their account, then if they are not able to repay the bank loan back, then the bank ends up losing out on some money, and they are in the business of making money, not losing money. So they want to protect their investment dollars by making sure loans are as safe as possible, which means they really wanted Phil to keep some cash in his account just to show that he would have some type of money to pay them back. It would give the bank more confidence in lending him money if he was to have more money on hand. Anyway, in the book, Phil talks through his first legal case and how he felt throughout the process. He was really transparent about his feelings when he realized that he was being sued by the Japanese company that was selling him shoes for breach of contract. He talked about how he felt while being interrogated on the witness stand, even how he felt during the negotiations outside of the courtroom. I just love the honesty that Phil shares with the reader about things that he did wrong and how he probably knew that he shouldn't have done certain things with the business, but he did them anyway, and how he learned from those mistakes and the consequences and repercussions of the actions that he took. He went on to discuss the legal battle around 1980 that he had with U.S. Customs because they were demanding Nike pay $25 million for some reason that seemed unfair to him. Through all of this, Phil was reluctant to take Nike public, which would have given the company a huge influx of cash, something they desperately needed, even though they had great sales. He was so against the inclusion of having many shareholders because he didn't know how that was going to change the company culture. He really didn't want to lose control. But eventually, Phil and his team found a way around his concerns and made the decision to go public. Through all of this, though, Phil was open in discussing how each new day brought new problems that needed to be addressed. And a situation like that is common for those blazing new paths within an industry or even creating new industries. In his case, there were already some established large players such as Adidas and Converse, but that didn't scare him off. He truly believed in his product and that his shoes were way better than anything the competition had to offer. Phil Knight's story is one of bootstrapping, perseverance, emotional resilience, politics, time management, family balance, and so many other important traits that are necessary when someone makes the decision to become an entrepreneur. And not only become an entrepreneur, but go all in for a product that they truly believe in. If you read this book, you'll notice something special about teamwork. Phil made a conscious effort to hire not only knowledgeable people, but those with passion to surround himself with. And that team that he built is what got him through all sorts of tough times and helped to grow his company. If you were to have taken away his team, there is no way that Nike would be what it is today. No way. Something that I like about not only the story that was told, but how the story was told, is that you can read it at two different stages in your life and probably get two different messages from it, depending on where you are in your personal journey. It's like a book that every entrepreneur should read because it really takes you on his journey, including ups and downs, to build one of the largest shoe companies in the world. It even had an emotional twist at the end, and being that I didn't know much about Phil Knight's life, it was a surprise to me. And because of the way the story was told, I felt a sense of empathy for the situation that he found himself in. So basically, I love the book and highly recommend it to everyone listening. It will indeed give you a sense of inspiration and motivation along your personal journey. And in my opinion, it will be one of those timeless business books for real. Don't completely take my word for it. I'll tell you I'm not being paid for this advertisement, but go out and grab a copy of Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, because I truly do think it is a great story of an entrepreneurial startup. And I think that no matter where you are in your journey, it can help you along your path. So with that, I hope this podcast session has been helpful for somebody that's been listening. Be sure to head on over to the website, thecreativeentrepreneurs.com/podcast, and leave comments on episode 24 on what you liked, what you disliked. And even if you've already read the book, let me know what you thought about it. Share this podcast episode with your friends on Facebook, YouTube, wherever, Twitter, and make sure that you head on over and leave a positive review on iTunes, because those are extremely helpful. And I want to thank you all for being on this episode with me. As always, I look forward to serving you in the next episode. And remember, build your dreams or somebody else will hire you to build theirs.
Thanks for listening to the Creative Entrepreneurs Podcast. Join us next time for more great insights. And don't forget to subscribe to the email list to get the latest information and updates.